We spent about $350,000 to get the clinic open. We have almost 3,000 square feet of space. We started big right off the get-go, which scared our families.
Michelle, welcome to the show, right? So you're the owner of On Pediatrics in Ottawa. You got a team of, I believe, 20, a team of 20 people in your practice, right? You know, like physios, OT, SLPs, osteopath. Like, did I get this right, Michelle?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm clinic co-owner with Julia Reed. So the two of us together work closely hand in hand to make everything happen around here. And we usually hang around somewhere between 17 to 20 clinicians and employees.
Wow. Geez. And so did you always start out off like with wanting to be like a peds, like specializing in peds, like when you finished like physiotherapy school?
No, not at all. I actually wasn't even sure I wanted to be a physiotherapist. So I was actually a school teacher before I became a physiotherapist. Yeah. I've always known I wanted to work with kids. Hence school teaching, obviously. But then I didn't love having 25 or 30 kids at a time, and trying to meet everyone's needs all at the same time was really challenging. So I decided to go back to physio school because that was my second kind of love or what I thought I wanted to do for my career. And I actually started in orthopedics, but I met another therapist who started treating my son because I knew as a physio, I knew something was up with his feet, but I didn't know what it was. So brought my son to her, and she found out I was a teacher previously and a physio at the time. And she was opening up her own peds clinic, and she decided to hire me, and I haven't looked back since. I feel like this is the place for me.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And so how many years did you work before you opened up your practice, Michelle?
As a physio, about 8 or 9 years.
Okay. And how did you know? Like, at what point did you know you're like, I want to open up a practice?
I saw a growing need at the clinic where I worked, and I wanted to do more. So I had a full caseload, and I knew I could help a lot of kids, but I knew there were tons more kids out there who needed more help. And there seemed to be like a lot of space for that in the industry in Ottawa. So it was fortunate I found Julia one day, and she had the same sort of goal, and we connected, and yeah, it just worked out right from the beginning.
So it was 8 years then, right, Michelle?
About that, yep.
Okay. And did you just see it as like, hey, the next journey of like becoming a therapist, a physiotherapist, was clinic ownership? Like, did you always know you wanted to be an owner, but you only realized that after working 8 years? I'm just kind of curious the mindset you had in
I didn't always know that that's what I wanted. I'm a pretty high level, independent, hardworking kind of person. So I get to a certain point where I've reached goals and I need to find new goals. And so I was getting pretty comfortable in my role as a physiotherapist, and I've been a leader in various types of positions and different kinds of employment forever, pretty much. And I just felt like I wanted to lead another team, and I felt like there was a lot of space for it, and I had a good skill set in terms of clinical skills and leadership, but I didn't have the administrative and management experience. So that's where Julia came in, and the two of us have partnered up really well with her experience and mine together to build what we have now.
Oh, wow. Okay. So what advice would you give to someone who is looking for opening up a clinic with a partner? It sounds like you found someone who gave you match skill sets that maybe like you didn't have, right? To complement you.
Yeah. So my brother-in-law is Dan Martell, who is famous in the coaching industry. He had suggested once I met Julia that we do a trial run with a project before committing to owning a clinic together, which is obviously a huge step. So she and I actually created an online course together, and it was us practicing how to work together, how to communicate, are we accountable, testing out those kinds of things. What's my skill set? What's hers? How do those connect together? So that it ended up working really well. And then we also did a few different kinds of personality tests. So I forget one is called, I forget now. I should have looked it up before. But we did
Myers-Briggs, right?
No,
was it the Myers-Briggs test or like Enneagram or something?
Sorry, pardon?
Was it the Enneagram test or the bank test?
No.
There's so many of them.
I know. So when you do the test, you have either two sides and a corner of a square or two corners and a side of a square. And ultimately with your leadership team, you want to have the whole square and all the corners filled. So she and I complemented each other. So there was one overlap, but the rest, she had a different skill set than me. And so then what we ended up doing when we were looking for our clinic manager is we closed the loop. So the whole square is full. So we have people who have different skill sets, but with including we had a marketing person help us out to get started, and our lawyers and bookkeepers. So with all those people, we have the whole square full. So someone on the leadership team has each of the skill sets required to run a business.
Okay. Hey, I'm thinking, is it that 4 zones of genius, like the stuff that you and Karen are kind of working on?
We have done that. Karen Elliott has had us do that. That was more recent.
Okay.
But we did the other one years ago before we opened up the business to see what skills we each had.
I love the advice that Dan gave, about testing someone to see what that relation would be like before you commit to this relationship. Because having a business partner is almost like marriage. So actually it is marriage. And so it could be very happy or it could be very ugly in the event of a divorce, right?
So interesting you say that. Julia's joke lately is that she and I are life partners and we made a business baby together.
It's so true, right? Yeah. So, but high level, like what would your superpower be versus Julia? Julia is the finance numbers. Is that kind of her thing?
Yeah, she's more into the management. My skill set is leading clinicians, so hands-on stuff. Finding the gaps in services and finding the gaps in what our clinicians know, what they don't know, what they need to learn, and finding a way to fill those gaps. So whether it be to recommend certain webinars or reading clinical practice guidelines, connecting with a mentor. We do a lot of mentoring in clinic. So when we recognize a lot of people have a gap, we'll use that gap as a learning point in some of our mentoring sessions. So I'm more that connector piece and helping people learn, whereas her responsibility is more the admin team and management.
Okay, cool. And I think you brought that up earlier, like Dan Martell, the famous like business coach, on social media. Like he's your brother-in-law.
Yeah. So my sister is Renee Warren, who also she's done lots of PR and marketing. She coaches female entrepreneurs, so she's in sort of the same space. So we've been very fortunate to get advice from them along the way, which has been really helpful. My sister's famous quote is, "You want to find somebody who has successfully done it before you."
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Dan.
From them, which is also why we're a part of Clinic Accelerator.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, what advice has Dan given you over the years? In terms of like growing your business, that's really helped you like grow to where you're at today. Like I said, like you're at almost like 20 providers now, right? And you started your practice 4 years ago as well, right?
We opened just over 3 years ago. So Julia and I have been working on the business for about 5 years.
Yeah. And what type of advice over the years have Dan given you, right? That you're like, oh my gosh, like it's been, it's been game changing.
Yeah. Between him and Renee, we've gotten lots of different advice. So Renee has given us more kind of PR and marketing advice. Dan has given us, or what we've chatted with him the most has been around talent acquisition.
Okay.
We find we've used tons of stuff from Clinic Accelerator, and I think that's actually a huge advantage for us. Is we started with Clinic Accelerator before we opened the clinic, so we had access to clinic owners who knew what they were doing, and we could bounce ideas off them and use templates and everything from Clinic Accelerator. And we set up our org structure before we got started with the plan for what we want in the future, not just the here and now. So we've done tons and tons of stuff from Clinic Accelerator, more so than getting advice from Dan and Renee.
Okay. Oh, cool. And let's talk about you opening up your clinic. What was like? How much did it cost you? Like, how big was the space? When you started?
Yeah, so we started big right off the get-go, which scared our families and was kind of against the advice of Dan and Renee.
You went all in, right? You're like, I'm committing to 3,000 square feet.
We were wholeheartedly committed and knew that the service we were providing, because it's pediatrics, is underserviced. We are in a space in the city of over 1 million people where there aren't any other clinics that service children. So we had very good gut feeling that we were going to be successful, and we wanted to be successful. And that was our mindset from the beginning. We spent about $350,000 to get the clinic open. We have almost 3,000 square feet of space. Yeah. And how we run our service is each clinician is assigned a private room for the day, and everyone has access to the gym space. So we have 8 working treatment rooms. Some are more designated for occupational therapy because of the equipment they have in the room, and others are dedicated more for, manual therapy. Like we had a chiropractor who is now on maternity leave, osteopath, physios, and we have a rec therapist who can go into whatever rooms, but the rooms are designed a little bit different. Like either they have a table and chairs and a swing, or they have a plinth and other physio type equipment. So clinicians get designated a specific room every day, and then the gym is all access for all clinicians. And we have things like a climbing wall and monkey bars and slide and swings and balls and cars and toys galore. So you choose what you need to do in the gym, when it's better to work in a private room.
All right. Sounds like there was a lot of flexibility. You made it very attractive for, therapists, providers want to work for you in the brand, right?
Yeah, definitely. We're still refining use of space because we're getting more and more busy all the time. So we need to tweak clinician schedules and to allow for more clinicians to come in and for more kids to get the services they need.
Yeah.
So we thought, people were scared that we were going to have 8 treatment rooms in the beginning with only 2 or 3 therapists from the get-go. But we now have, 6 occupational therapists and 5 physios, an osteo who's here once every couple weeks, a speech language pathologist starting full-time in a few weeks. So yeah, we're busy. We're busy, very, very busy. And we have to start thinking outside the box for how we're going to continue to grow.
Yeah, that's crazy. But one thing that you brought up was really interesting is, I think you're right. Most people who start a practice initially, aren't sure. So they just get maybe 1 or 2 rooms, right? Like a very 1-year lease, non-committal, maybe drop $500 or $1,000, maybe $5,000, inside the gym or a doctor's office.
Yeah.
And you went all in.
We did.
You and Julie went all in, it takes an incredible amount of courage and also vision, because you have to be able to see it to be able to commit $350,000 to do a startup,
Yeah. Yeah. It was a huge commitment. It was a giant, scary leap, but we were, like I said, 100% confident that we're going to be providing services that are needed in the community, and we weren't wrong.
Yeah, that's awesome. Something I see a lot happen, Michelle, is someone might just I see startups do like they might buy space for 1,000 square feet, right? And then and then the business takes off. And then within a year or two, they have to actually get a new space because their current space can't service like all the patients and all the revenue coming in, right?
Yeah.
And so you end up doing this whole brutal startup process like twice within a period of 5 years if your business is taking off. And there's a cost to that as well.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that was, that's something you guys probably took into account, right?
We did, yeah. We thought, our initial 3 to 5 year plan was to open a second brick and mortar space. We are at 3 years now, and we're actually focusing on refining our systems and making sure everything can operate pretty seamlessly. And then from there, we're going to decide if we want to do another brick and mortar or if we're going to find another way of expanding that doesn't include creating a whole other clinic space.
Yeah.
Because the big cost for us is the gym, right?
Yeah.
The gym is not revenue generating for the most part because each clinician has their own space to work in, their own room. So it had to be worth it. And we do have some group sessions that we do in the gym, but it's still, the clinician is still booked for a room at the same time. So, I mean, these are things we had to take into account, right? How do we generate enough revenue in our space to make that big gym worth it? And it is definitely the draw. We don't bring certain kids into the gym until we absolutely need to because we know we won't get them to leave. Right. And we do have kids who throw fits when it's time to leave. They're like, no, we want to stay and play longer. We don't want to go. So it's a blessing and a curse in a way, but it's a really fun space. One of our clients calls it the super special fun gym. Yeah. So we actually use that in our marketing.
Yeah, I think it's good. So, so you're in the peds niche. Your typical peds niche clinic, or the floor plan is much smaller. Like you guys, your practice is much bigger. It's probably double, right? Would you say?
Oh yeah. In each room for physio, we don't just need a plinth. We have a plinth. We have a shelving unit that has toys and different kinds of equipment, but we also need enough floor space to do a lot of floor work because we do have lots of babies and toddlers coming in. So each room also has a 4x6 mat that goes on the floor and then extra space around it. So our clinic rooms they're quite large.
Yeah, love it. So I'm curious, how do you get your first 100 clients? Like is marketing in peds different compared to a typical traditional like orthopedic physio clinic or chiro clinic or massage clinic? Yeah, I'm curious what you did to fill your space for the first
my goodness,
100.
We did so many things. That's a great question. Yeah. Myself and a few of the other clinicians that started early on all worked in pediatrics before. And what naturally happens when you leave a niche practice is that you have clients that follow you. So we did have some clients that we were treating in another clinic who followed us to where we are. And for some, we're actually closer to home. So they were extra grateful that we could be closer to where they are. But we also did so many other things. So initially, we didn't have a big budget for marketing. So, and this was again on the advice of Dan, is what can you do with not much money? So we wrote letters. We created a list of every single pediatrician in the Ottawa area. We wrote a letter to them explaining who we are, what we do, what our intentions are, what kind of clients we're looking for. We hand delivered them to every clinic so that they knew we existed, because before that we didn't. And if we didn't tell them that information, we weren't sure they were going to find us organically. So we did that. And we also did the same in the schools in the area. Okay. So we wrote a letter specific to, we wanted more maybe special support teachers, educational assistants, learning support teachers to read the letter. So that's who we addressed it to, because those kids that they're seeing in the classroom or at school are more likely to be the types of kids who would benefit from our services. So we wrote a special letter, again, explaining who we are, what we do, where we are. and how we can support kids that are struggling at school. And we hand delivered all those to the schools in the area so that, we leave it on the desk of hopefully the right person, and we have actually made some connections that way. So that was also beneficial. We had someone who specializes in marketing start our website for us in the beginning, and help to connect us to social media. We started off with Instagram and Facebook. I did a lot of it, and Julia did a lot of it in the beginning, and we weren't super great. We weren't that consistent.
Pretty normal, right?
Yeah.
You want to cut costs in there.
My wheelhouse, right? But in the beginning, clinic owners do all the things, and you're not necessarily good at all the things. So we have made changes since then, but it did help us get some of our initial clients. Word of mouth helped. We are pretty niche, so it was kind of like, hey, Barrhaven, which is the part of Ottawa we're in. It's like, hey, come check us out. We did a grand opening. So we did one with just family and friends that we invited in. And then, from there, we had another grand opening. We invited doctors and teachers and people around the community. Come check us out, come see what we do and who we are. And what else did we do?
So it sounds like you did a lot of community marketing, getting involved with all the different whether it's businesses or also influencers, right? That influences like a parent or a child's recovery.
So the doctors and pediatricians are the ones who are going to refer specifically for physiotherapy or occupational therapy. So if they didn't know we existed, how are we going to get those referrals? So that was why we brought the letters in, but we also did a lot of lunch and learns. So before we opened and just as we were opening, Julia and I would, hit the streets and go to different clinics and teach the doctors on the lunch hour what we do. Like, what services do we offer? Because, I think doctors know, but a lot of parents, we still get asked all the time, what does a pediatric physiotherapist do for a kid other than injuries?
Interesting. So doctor marketing still works then, right, Michelle?
It does for us.
So how do you, this is a question I get a lot, and I'm curious what you do. So at this lunch and learn, what do you talk to there's 3-4 doctors there, obviously they want you to feed them. What do you do to create an experience so it's also, you're not just standing there doing a PowerPoint presentation of here's what I do, buy from me now, right?
Yeah, we get their lunch order first and we bring them the lunch that they ask for. We come in, so we have lots of shiny, bright, fun, noisy toys. So we collect a specific bunch of toys that we use during sessions. So sometimes the toy is part of therapy. So maybe you're doing some fine motor work and you need to use a puzzle. But sometimes the toys are the motivation or distraction from the therapy to try and encourage the kid to continue doing the therapy. So we kind of explain those pieces to the doctors and we say, hey, if we have a kid with this problem, this would be some of the different things that we do. Obviously, kids of different ages need different toys. They need different motivations and they're in for therapy for different things. So really just explaining what are all of the different things that we can treat and educate them. We give an overview and then we ask the doctors, tell us what are your biggest pain points or what are kids coming in with the biggest challenges? And then we'll specifically talk to those things, like how can I help with whatever? And for me, one of them is constipation. As soon as I tell doctors I work with pediatricians, especially that I work with kids who are constipated, I get, 10, 20 new assessments in the next few weeks.
Oh, geez.
It's such a common problem.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And what's your frequency? Do you still do these lunch and learns with these do you guys go out monthly, quarterly, yearly, or now you're just back to sending the letters again and not meeting with doctors?
So we do neither at the moment because we are so busy. We are more focused on talent acquisition, so finding more clinicians to work in this space. We're getting more assessments than we can handle right now with the amount of clinicians we have. So doctors know we exist already. But the other piece that we do as part of the Clinic Accelerator is we do have our patient experience journey. So when kids come in, the clinician on the day they have their assessment, they get a plan of care. That plan of care, if parents consent to it, which I think more than half of them consent, to have it faxed to the doctor. And then the doctor now knows that that kid is getting our services for whatever it is they need. And if they didn't know that was an option before, now they know we exist and they know that we can provide those services. So we're not necessarily going out to specific clinics, but as kids who are coming in from doctors who don't know we exist yet, well, now they know we do. And we're keeping that line of communication open.
I love that. And you just made that into like an operational daily process, right?
It is. It's a non-negotiable. We do it for every single kid. Every clinician, it's part of how we work at Play On Pediatric Therapy. So the parent, like we scan that plan of care into the child's EMR, we fax it to the doctor, and the parent takes it home with them. So if they forget what they're coming in for and what the goals are, they can look at that plan of care.
Yeah, I love it. Do you also send progress or like discharge as well, or when they graduate, or just the initial plan of care?
It depends. Some kids are with us for years, and it might be their doctor wants a note of progress. A lot of times those kids, the parents are pretty confident in updating the doctors with their progress or their areas of need. Sometimes our clinicians will ask, is it okay if I send a progress note because I really want your doctor to know about this thing that you're still challenged with or this thing that you've just had success with? So if the clinician feels like it's necessary, they will reach out. Or if the doctor is looking for specific information, or, we have a lot of kids who need psychoed assessments. So the teacher might want a letter, or the doctor might want a letter of progress to add to that file to kind of, give more information when they're looking to complete that psychoed assessment.
Yeah, I love that. And it sounds like you have a very integrated multidisciplinary practice for for peds, right? I'm curious, what percentage of your patients would get a second service, right? Whether it's like PT, OT, or OT, PT, or speech or SLP. Is that I'm assuming it's a pretty high percentage because of your multidisciplinary base, right?
Yeah, that's a tricky question to answer. I don't know if I can put a percentage on it. I like maybe 10%.
Okay.
It's maybe not as high as you think. We haven't had a speech therapist yet. We've had the question hundreds of times. So this is going to be new to us next month.
Okay.
I think with that coming in, there will probably be a little bit more multidisciplinary.
Okay.
We do, actually, it might be more than 10%. There is a lot of overlap between what an OT can do and what a physio can do in the ped space in terms of development.
Okay.
So we do our wait list for occupational therapy is somewhere around 300 kids right now, which is huge.
Wow.
This summer we're really busy with physio, so we now have to wait until like 4 to 6 weeks to get in new assessments. But until a few weeks ago, we could get you in for a new assessment as early as the following week.
Yeah.
But because there's a lot of overlap there, we do have some kids who are on the OT wait list. Our PEC team, our patient experience coordinators, will have a conversation with parents when they call in, and they might point them in another direction. Like, I hear you saying these are the challenges, but I think you might have some crossover with physiotherapy or, osteopathy or something else. Let me explain the service to you and explain what might work for your child. And then oftentimes we can get kids started in physio, which is building towards their ultimate goal, which is probably more like in the end an occupational therapy goal. But because there's so much development that if we don't work from the bottom up, that OT piece might not work as well. So they come to physio first for the foundational stuff. Then by the time they get in for occupational therapy, they're set up for better success. Yeah.
And how would a patient know like what they need, right? When they come in, they have this problem. Like, how does your Like, how does your front desk or your clinical team like triage decide like, hey, you should see a PT first or OT first if there is so much overlap?
Yeah, our front end team is very, they get a lot of training. So they
Okay.
learn kind of what each therapist can do. We have a spreadsheet because each therapist has a different skill set. So we like to make sure they're matched up with someone who has the correct skill set, obviously, so they get the best service. But they also, um, we have scripts so they know, okay, this person is calling in for, problem A, where there might be some overlap. So I'm going to educate you on this thing. And we
Okay.
do sometimes have parents calling in. A big common one is they call in because they were told they need occupational therapy, when in reality they actually need physio, but someone else told them they need OT, so that's what they think. So our front desk staff knows when it seems more like a physio thing, and maybe we need to call back the parent. So, they'll say, hey, let me check with one of the physios to see if you need physio or OT for this situation. Then we call them back and make sure we're providing the right service. Another thing we do is free discovery calls. So if a parent calls in and they're not really sure, they're like, this is my kid's problem, but I don't know what kind of therapy they need, they will get booked in for a free call with me so I can help them figure out what's the best stream for them to follow.
Okay. And then what do you do on this call? Like I'm assuming you ask a lot of questions to help, identify like maybe their pain points and what like history and stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. I ask them what the biggest problem is. How old is your child? What are the biggest struggles? Have you tried something before that works or doesn't work? So trying to get as much information as possible in a really short amount of time to send them in the right direction. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's not us. And if it's not us, that's okay. We'll point them in another direction.
Yeah. I love that. And is that a phone call or like they do that in person, Michelle?
That's a phone call.
Okay. Cool. So is that how most of the new patients kind of come in when they're unsure? Like they go through this vehicle of like these discovery calls?
No, I think I have one discovery call every 1 to 3 weeks. It's not
Okay.
very frequent. Most people know what they want, or they know what service is the best option for their child. So it's
Okay.
not as frequent as you might think.
And is majority of them calling your clinic to book or are they booking online? I'm curious. I feel like I'm a parent, I have a 10-year-old and I feel like I want to talk to to the service provider and I have all these questions about my daughter before I want to book. Is that the right assumption?
We only do online bookings now. It wasn't enabled until a few months ago because we're so specific, so niche, and we really have therapists that are really great with certain ages or certain types
Hmm.
of issues that we need everything to go through front end so that you're getting matched up with the correct person. And if you enable online booking, people will book for the shortest available service and the least expensive service because they don't know. So everything, all initial assessments need a specific intake form filled out. They need to be triaged into the right hands. So online booking is only available for follow-ups and only for physiotherapy.
Okay, I love that, and I recommend that as well, right? Like I think unless you have a killer website that and a very amazing user experience on Jane or whatever platform you use,
We use Jane.
it's way better for them to talk to someone at your front to be able
Yeah,
to help guide the conversation and into
yeah,
the right path, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about your front desk ops. It seems like a lot of your business is, starts from the front desk. Like what's working and what's still a challenge right now, Michelle, at your practice?
Yeah. Well, what's working? Our patient experience manager is working in Dee Bills's program right now. So she has weekly calls and homework, and she's been learning a lot over the last few months. She's been implementing a lot of what she's learning, which has had a great impact on the front desk. We use CallHero, and Jane is our EMR. So the combination of those and the onboarding and training that we provide to our patient experience coordinators really helps keep everything running smoothly. We use Google Suites to help us out. So we have, tons of spreadsheets, and we use email through Google Suite. I think communication, we have lots of scripts. So the communication is pretty great. We try to be consistent. That's why we try to use our scripts as much as possible so that everyone's getting the same information. Where we struggle sometimes is it can feel overwhelming for new people coming in because there is so much to learn. So what our manager is doing now is she's starting to record videos for training so that when the new people are onboarding, yes, they get their in-person hands-on learning, but if they forget how to do something or they haven't learned it and they need to learn it, is they can go find those videos to see how we do things in our clinic.
I love it, right? And so what's the typical, how long does it take you to onboard or train the front desk now? From hire to them taking a shift by themselves?
Probably about 3 weeks, but it's not to say they're in 5 days a week for 3 weeks.
Okay.
They're learning a little bit here and there. They need to have overlap with our manager when she's here. Some of the onboarding is done on your own time or, by yourself, not on your own time, but, you can choose when you're doing it. We pay for training.
I love it. Yeah. You pay for training.
Yeah. I would say 3 weeks probably until a full independent shift. There'll be, certain things that we save for later. Start with the training wheels. You get to do certain tasks when you're working independently in the beginning. And some things you're going to wait until you know a little bit more. You get really comfortable with these things before we start adding on more tasks to what you need to do during your shift.
Yeah. Okay. So Michelle, I'm curious, when I look back at your growth journey, it's been incredible. I remember you opening your practice, 3-4 years ago. And, I was like, these girls are going to rock it. Right. I'm curious, if you look back, right. What would you do differently in terms of hiring? What were the first couple of roles you've hired, and what would you do differently?
We hired our patient experience manager before we opened, and we hired another receptionist as well before we opened to really start working on, we had to learn how to use our EMR. We had to learn CallHero. How are we going to create different systems? What are we going to do? What's going to work? So one of those people had helped to open another clinic before. So we had some insight from her. We were working on things months and months before we opened.
And would you change that? Because what you brought up is very rare. You went all in too. You hired an office manager, right? Plus a 3,000 square foot facility, right? Yeah. And you went all in on day one, right?
We did. Yeah.
Whereas most people typically they won't even hire a front desk until maybe a year or 2 years into the practice, right?
Yeah. Well, we did part of this because Julia and I were still working other jobs when we first started, when it was just the two of us. This was our side gig. Getting this ready was our side gig. We still had our full-time jobs. Okay. And then we came to a point where, construction's always delayed, but we were supposed to open in, I think April. No, first it was going to be February, and then it was going to be May, and then it ended up being in June. So we quit our other jobs too early. So that might be one thing I would say I wouldn't do again. So we were panicking. How are we going to survive without any income right now? And we have to pay our bills. So that was pretty tricky. So I would expect more delays in construction than you think. Anticipate more and more.
A 3 months buffer or 6 months buffer? What would you say, Michelle?
No, I would say 6 for sure.
I agree.
You never know. I mean, for us, it was kind of pandemic time too, right? So not everything was available. So our independent or our contractors had to wait for flooring. They said they were going to get it last week and then it was next week instead. So it's it's out of their control because the supply chains were a bit messed up. So, and then the city was really slow getting the construction permit. done. So it's like all of these things that now we know we should expect them, but we had heard about it from other people, but didn't really, we hadn't lived that experience. So yeah, so anticipating longer delays in construction would be one thing that if we had to do it over again, would make a difference. What ended up happening, because we assumed we were going to be starting our clinic more in April, is I found another clinic I rented a room so that I could see clients. So I was building Play On, but working in a different structure, a different building.
You're so
And I was
entrepreneurial.
doing home visits to try and generate some income
Okay.
before we were actually open.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that what I'm seeing a lot of people do is like they'll work part-time for like another 6 months while like the clinic opens so that, it's more of a transition with like the cash flow, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Another challenge I think is we overhired in the beginning with support staff. So we hired OTA, PTAs, so some clinical assistants that we were paying hourly, but they weren't generating revenue. And we felt like, if we told you we were going to give you 30 hours a week of work, then we have to give you 30 hours a week. So the learning from that is in contracts now we write up to a certain number of hours per week, which we try to give everybody the same schedule week to week. But every once in a while now we reduce hours if there's not enough, if they're not generating enough revenue. So we learned from that experience is like, don't guarantee people a certain amount of work, is you need to expect a little bit of flexibility.
Yeah. So your first hire was like an office manager, and then it sounded like you hire, like a patient experience coordinator, right? And then your next hire was like a PTA or OTA. Was that your third hire?
We had a few clinicians that were going to start for us right away. So they were hired before, but not actually working for us until we opened.
Okay.
So we hired them and we said, your start date is in 3 months or 4 months from now. And they were fine with that because they had time to transition. They weren't waiting around for work, as they were ready to work when we opened.
Right. Okay. And so maybe describe the rest of your journey, how you got to a team of 20, from the beginning, right?
Well, we first anticipated that physiotherapy was going to be super busy and OT was not going to be. So I don't know. We're open a lot of hours during the week as well. So we wanted to be able to offer services the whole time we're open. And with kids, we know that we need people available after school times and on weekends. So we had to hire a little bit in advance to kind of fill those gaps. So it was going to be easier to have somebody work from 2 to 8 p.m. than it was going to be to fill their schedule from 8 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon when kids are at school. So that was part of what we hired. We tried to hire kind of one clinician at a time for, one kind of therapy. So we hired one physio, and then when that physio was getting busy enough, we hired another one. And when that one was getting busy enough, we hired another one, so that we knew we had enough of a caseload for each person that it was worth it for them and worth it for us. And the need for OT is huge in this city. I don't know if it's the same everywhere, but there are tons of kids who are looking for services. So that grew much quicker than we expected. So it was like, It just felt like we're constantly looking to build the bench and hire more people. We try to have more than 2 disciplines, like OT and physio are the 2 that we have all the time every day. And the others they complement. So we had a chiropractor who was predominantly working with babies, which is pretty rare. She's on mat leave now, so she's not with us. We've been looking for a speech therapist for a while, but didn't have someone who really was going to be the right fit for us at the time. We had a naturopath working virtually that didn't work. So, some of these things are trial and error. How much work do we have for them? How many clients are they going to take?
Yeah, it's a balancing act, right? Because if you hire them, you gotta get them full. And if you don't get them full, they're like, well, maybe I should work like another side hustle or another part-time job elsewhere, right?
Yeah. So our preference is definitely full-time employees, but we do have a few that are part-time here and part-time somewhere else where their work is a little bit different, and they like a lot of them like having that balance of here and somewhere else.
Yeah. And what's the ideal like physio or OT that would really that you want to hire that works well within your clinic culture, Michelle?
Yeah, our clinic values are family, growth, and adventure. So we definitely ask questions around that when we're looking for the right fit. You know, what is your take on family? What does that mean to you in your life? And how is that going to integrate into how we see family in the clinic? We definitely need growth-minded people. There's always something to learn in pediatrics. You make plan A, and plan A is not going to work today. So you need to have a plan B. You need to be adaptable and flexible, so that we kind of see that as an adventure, and you need to grow and learn so that you can be adaptable. And we really need people who are resilient. There are days that are really tough. We have kids who can be challenging to work with, and you need to be able to separate that from yourself. It's not you. You can't take that as damage to your ego. It's like, this kid is having a challenge today. Things might not be working how you want them to. So pivot, do what you can, be adaptable, but then you also need to learn from it and, take that into the future in what you're doing. So it's been tricky to find the right kind of questions to ask during interviews, because it takes a resilient, adaptable, hardworking person to have enough patience to work with kids all day.
Yeah.
So we've had they think they want to work with kids, and they give themselves a goal of working for 6 months or a year, and then they change their mind and say, you know what, this is challenging, it's not for me, and they go work with adults.
Yeah.
So
I could see that. And so it sounds like you give a lot of training and a lot of perks for people to work with your mission. I'm just curious, like, what do you do in terms of like maybe training or like retention strategies to keep like talent, which apparently, clearly it's a shortage, right? What do you guys are doing that is attracting all these people that want to work with you?
Oh, lots of things. So many things. I wrote them down because the list is huge. So one of them is since we have someone doing social media who likes it and is consistent with it, we've had a massive, massive increase in followers. And a lot of them are actually clinicians. So we've done loads of interviews lately where people say, I found you on Instagram and you look like your clinic is really fun to work at, so I want to come and work here.
Okay, so all those silly Instagram reels behind the scenes, like like you're telling me that works for recruitment, right?
All of it. It does. We have clinicians, I'm not kidding you, from around the whole entire world who have sought to work here. We have one from Egypt, one from India, someone who was living in Australia who's now back in Canada. So we are
incredible
getting talent from around the world who want to come and work for us in this clinic, partly because of that Instagram and the social media. Yeah. So we show like, what are the fun things we do? How do we treat kids? So much, it's play. If you don't play with the kid, they're not going to do your therapy. So it's, showing and that
showing off your beautiful space, your 3,000 square foot space with your beautiful like play gym.
Yeah. With the super special fun gym.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. We have done, or Julia has done, cold calls for people on LinkedIn. So yes, it is hard to find clinicians who are interested and trained in pediatric therapy. So she has done dozens of cold calls. Say, hey, I see your resume on LinkedIn, or I see that you're, this kind of therapist. Are you interested in working for us? So she opens that door.
Does that work? Does that work?
It has, actually, it has.
Okay. Yeah, and then you're like, watch this Instagram video. Like, this is what our clinic is like working with us, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the people behind it. Cool.
Yeah, we do job postings on LinkedIn. We've paid for job postings. Yeah. We will email the different programs at universities. So we'll email the students at the university and say, hey, look, this is our job posting. Share it with your friends. We've had a few people come in our doors, at least for interviews, by doing that. We participate in student job fairs at the universities when we can. We haven't done it very often, but we've had interest in if not people coming in to do placements, then also being interested in working for us.
Yeah, placements is a great recruitment tool, especially in these niche practices. Like you're literally, they're not only are you interviewing them, but they're actually being absorbed into your culture. And at the end, they're like, oh, I'm all in, right?
Yeah, and they're learning exactly what we do and how we treat kids. So they're actually ready for a caseload as soon as they start. We have actually hired some of our students in the past.
Yeah, awesome. So you must have a really strong like mentorship, like a clinician mentorship program, right? To take someone from out of school to them being a full-fledged like pediatrics and PT and OT then, right?
Yeah, we do. So every Wednesday at noon, we have some kind of group session. So the first Wednesday of each month is staff meeting. So it's a great touch point. Ideally, everyone is coming in, but if not, they can join us virtually or watch the video recording after. But we like to do icebreakers that are fun. We want to connect people, make sure they're getting FaceTime, they're seeing each other, they're spending time with each other. And then we get to, the nuts and bolts of whatever updates and progress and, changes that we might be making. The third Wednesday of each month is all the clinicians do some kind of small group learning that is suitable for both. So yesterday, for example, we did some practice of planning sessions for kids who might have DCD. So all clinicians might see a kid with DCD. So what are the different intervention strategies and ideas? And, we got to work in small groups together. On the second and fourth Wednesdays of each month, it's just each therapy discipline has their own specific thing that they're learning and practicing. That is more pertinent to, that kind of therapy. The front desk or the patient experience team has training that they will do either independently or weekly. And for us, it's really important to have monthly touch points. So each clinician, each staff member has a one-on-one with our clinic director, who currently, Julia, one of the clinic co-owners, is acting as the clinic director. So she will meet with them, and then each sub therapy type will have one-on-ones regularly if needed. So all of the OTs have a 1 hour session with the lead OT, so they can do some caseload management, strategic planning. And then the physios, if they need more training, we'll do one-on-ones, and we'll teach them something very specific to what they want to know, or if they want to do a caseload review, we can do that. For newer clinicians, instead of monthly, those one-on-ones are weekly.
Okay.
Or more.
Okay. I love
and
this.
We have access to a lot of short online courses and webinars, so we'll connect them with those, point them in the right direction for clinical practice guidelines they can read, or, videos that are educational. So there's lots to be learned. It's sometimes finding the time for it, but yeah, we definitely support learning as much as possible.
It sounds like you built a really good foundation for professional development, right? For every one of your staff.
Yeah, we have a $750 education fund for each clinician, prorated for full time.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
And then we also, yeah.
That's great.
I was going to go back to answering the other thing on my list about attracting new clinicians is we also have a recruitment bonus. So if a current clinician or staff member recruits somebody that gets hired, we have a bonus structure in place for that, and we have actually used it too. So whatever tools are out there, we use as many of them as possible, and we seem to get traction with almost everything.
What would you say is the top ways that you're attracting clinician? Is it social first, or is it that LinkedIn stuff, or is it like the referrals from within the staff, or is it pretty even right across?
Recruitment from other staff members is not very high.
Okay.
Social media and posting the jobs, I think, are partly connected. Okay. So we had someone who works for us now who started following us on Instagram 2 years ago. And then when we posted a job, which we also post on social media, then she was like head over heels, I'm going to work in this place. I'm the one that they're going to hire. So it was the combination.
Yeah. And which makes sense. Like, like they've been following you, or even vice versa. Like they apply it on job postings. Like, who are the people behind this? Who is Michelle? Who is like Julia? And then they go check you out on social and your website. And then they're kind of making an assessment on like what it would be like if I was to work there. Right. So,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So, so Michelle, how do people find out more about like you? Like, they've listened to this, or maybe one day they're like, hey, I want to be part of like Michelle's leadership team, or maybe I want to work here, like how do people find out more about you and what you guys do?
The easiest way would be to look on our website. If we have job postings, they're on our website. Following us on social media, you'll get some kind of message almost every day. You can see what it's like to work in the clinic. You can meet our clinicians that way, meet our staff members. From time to time, we have little activities in the clinic for kids, so you can kind of keep up to date on that. We have group sessions for kids, so that also gets posted on social media. So that's where you're going to get the most up-to-date information. We have blogs that can be read that are on the website. If you are interested in having a personal chat, then we welcome people to give us a call or email us, and we can set up a chat. Julia and I are available for that. We love meeting people and telling them about what we do here and how they can help us grow the practice and grow their own practice or get services if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We like to have an open door. We're available to communicate with everyone.
Love it. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Michelle.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.